Hello, good evening. I am not able to hear over Zoom. I'm not sure whether others are able to hear it.
Hold on a sec. How about now?
Yes. Yeah, I can
Perfect.
able to hear now. Yeah.
All right, perfect. We're going to have Lee Altman here. She's going to talk about how to get involved in public speaking. And again, or not in public speaking, in public service, maybe city council, school board. And again, that's another thing where I wanted to do it 30 years ago when I lived in Miami. Being a city commissioner, I wanted to do it, but I didn't want to get up and speak. So now that I have those abilities, it's something in the back of my mind. So she's going to come talk to us. We're going to have a club social on February 21st. I'll let Elvis talk about that. We have a speech contest coming up January 31st, I believe. I'll let Eric talk about that. And then in June, we're going to get new officers because July 1st is when the new officers start. And I know a lot of people just come to Toastmasters to do public speaking, get over their fears. But the motto of Toastmasters is where leaders are made, and you have a lot of opportunities to work on leadership skills, different committees, move up the ladder. And our district director, her name is Jody Kuntz. She is the district director and basically president of the North Carolina area. And she has a statistic that she likes to say it is 7,450. And she says that since she's joined Toastmasters, she's been promoted 7 times and has had a 450% increase in her wages. And when she said that at this meeting Saturday, I thought, and I was like, well, I've had 2 promotions and a 52% increase. And it's all, I base it all on Toastmasters, is just giving me the skills and ability to move up in the company. So just something to think about if you want to be an officer. That's going to be in June. And let's go ahead and get the meeting started. And I'm going to turn it over to our president, Elvis Lopez. Elvis. Here we go.
Thank you, David. Good evening, fellow Toastmasters and honorable guests. Honorable, just saying it again. It's a great pleasure to be here tonight. We have a wonderful meeting, and you'll see later on. We have a great program tonight. I have the pleasure to be presiding this meeting over today. My name is Elvis Lopez, and I would like, as is customary for our club, to introduce our guests. So I would like those who are on Zoom and also here on site to tell us a little bit about yourself. We want to know your name. How did you hear about us? And what goal are you pursuing by coming over to our meeting tonight? I hope it is not one of those year resolutions, right? You're now coming to Toastmasters to become better speakers. So if it is, well, it's a good New Year resolution. So please continue working on that goal. So I would like to pass on the mic to those who are on site. But before I do that, I would like to ask those who are on site to please unmute yourself and introduce to the rest of the group. So I would like to call upon Tamil or Tamil. Am I saying that correctly?
Yeah, you're right. Yes.
All right.
Hi, my name is Tamil. This is my second time to be part of the Queen City Toastmaster Club. I have joined on January 3rd. My expectation is I'm going to interact with many customers. That's my job. So being part of this Toastmaster Club will help me to speak very confidently and fluently with my customer. That is the reason I want to be part of the Toastmaster Club.
Thank you. It's good to have you here.
Thank you.
I would like to continue with Dave.
Yeah, hello everyone. My name's Dave. Yeah, just looking to kind of improve on my interpersonal communication and being a little less anxious when I'm talking with people. So yeah, just kind of curious to see what the meetings are all about. And yeah.
Thank you. It's good to have you here, Dave. And Ali?
Hey, I'm Ali. I am a finance analyst at Wells Fargo, and I've always had kind of a fear of public speaking. Never really took the steps to work on it. So, yeah, I'm hoping to become better at communicating person to person, but also in front of a crowd.
Thank you for joining us, Ali. You're in the right group. And
Thank
now
you.
I would like to go on and pass on the mic to our guests who are on site.
I know you guys are sick of seeing me, but yes, I'm still a guest. This is my third visit to a Toastmasters meeting. My name is Yasmin Rago, and I work in marketing for Circle K Corporate. And like everyone else, I previously had a fear of public speaking. So I really just came here to improve that so I could level up at my company. And also, I have anxiety, which also leads into my fear of public speaking. So I feel like it's kind of been, even coming to a couple of meetings I have has really helped me just let go of that a little bit. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. My name is Xavier. I am a operations manager in training at a local trailer leasing company. I'm here today to work on my public speaking and also develop my leadership skills here with Toastmasters. So thank you for this opportunity.
Help with that. It's going to be through here.
You sure? Good evening, Toastmasters and honorable guests. My name is Ashley Weaver, Senior Manager of Marketing and Strategic Initiatives with the Adecco Group US Foundation. I am here for my second time with Toastmasters to work on public speaking, executive presence, and networking. Thank you all so much.
Good evening. My name is Erin Patterson. I recently moved here from Orlando like 2 weeks ago. So this is my first meeting here at the Toastmasters in Charlotte, but I'm not new to Toastmasters. I did Toastmasters for a few years in Georgia and Florida, from Georgia originally. So I'm looking for more networking opportunities, not necessarily to improve on public speaking, even though there's always room for improvement, but that's why I'm here.
Hi, I'm Rob Greenbacker. This is my first ever Toastmasters. And yes, this is a New Year's resolution, but I am hoping to get over my anxiety of public speaking, have more executive presence. I work from home, so I'm not seeing as many people as I used to. So it's also an excuse to get out of the house and have more relationships.
Good evening, everybody. My name is LaShawn Bower. This is my third meeting. My overall goal is to improve my public speaking, but I do have a keynote coming up in March. So I figured I need to start practicing because I don't want to look a fool. But so I'm also wanting to network as well. So thank you and have a good evening.
Hello, everyone. My name is Anders. I work in sales for an asset manager here in town. I moved to Charlotte about a year ago. This is probably my second time ever being to Toastmasters, my first time ever being to the one here in Queen City. And it's not a New Year's resolution. It was just coincidental timing. But I definitely am working on trying to improve my public speaking, my presence, also my critical listening skills by listening to other people speak as well. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. My name is Lonnie Richardson. This is my first time coming out to Toastmasters. I have a background in banking, formerly military. That's kind of how I learned about Toastmasters. A friend suggested it, so I figured I'd come out and see if I could improve on my leadership skills, networking, and public speaking.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you to all our guests. We definitely have a full house tonight. Now, I would like to introduce the person who is going to lead us throughout the rest of the meeting. Every week, for the benefit of our guests and those who are for the first time here, every week we have a volunteer member of this club, a Toastmaster, who is the Toastmaster of the day. Tonight, I have the pleasure to introduce our VP of Education, is a Toastmaster who represented us in one of the evaluation contests last year, went to the area contest, and is one of the most involved Toastmasters in our club. Please help me welcome our Toastmaster of the day, Dr. Eric Laxer.
Thank you, Toastmaster Elvis. Would you mind doing that introduction again? That was really sounded great. So I'm Eric Laxer, and I have the honor of being our Toastmaster of the day or Toastmaster of the evening. And I'd like to welcome all of you to your favorite and my favorite night of the week, Tuesday night, Queen City Toastmasters meeting. So as Elvis said, every meeting has a Toastmaster. That's my role tonight. And one of the roles of the Toastmasters of the day is to choose a theme. And the title of my theme is Things in Your Life You Thought Were True That Just Weren't. You found out later in life that something you thought of or thought you knew was not necessarily what you thought. Has that ever happened to anybody here? So early on, when my wife and I were dating, she shared a story with me, and she said, don't tell this to anyone because it's embarrassing. So I have to tell you guys, don't tell this to anyone because it's embarrassing. Now, when she was a little kid, she told me that she thought cats were girls and dogs were boys. And that when they grew up, they got married and they had little kids, and the little kittens were the girls and the little puppies were the boys, and the same thing happened over and over. And she was so heartbroken when she discovered later on in life, I won't tell you what age, that wasn't quite the case. But that's an example of something that I'm talking about. In my own life, I'll tell you a funny story. When we moved to Charlotte several years ago, we were looking for a house. We came here from Canada. And in Canada, because of the weather, the power lines are buried under the ground. But here in the Carolinas, they're not. And you see power lines everywhere. And when we were looking for houses, I kept seeing these large power line towers. And for some of the towers, they had trees around them that were shaped like this. Like the leaves of the trees were growing away from the power lines. And I said to my wife, I'm a doctor. I know about health stuff. I said, this can't be good. There are these electromagnetic signals. They're coming out of the power lines. They're clearly doing something to damage the life of the tree. And we don't want to buy a house near a power line. So we didn't buy a house near a power line. And I really felt good about the decision. Then about 10 years later, I was driving home from work and I turned on a street on the way to my house and I see these orange cones, one after another. And I see about 4 City of Charlotte trucks with the big buckets. And what do I see in the buckets? All these employees cutting down the branches that were too close to the power lines. Because clearly what happens is not that the power lines keep the branches from growing, but if you have branches growing into the power lines, it's going to damage them. So all the trees and power lines that I saw 10 years earlier, I totally misinterpreted. So that was an example of something that I thought I understood, but clearly had no idea what I was looking at. So that is the theme. And later on, I'm going to invite anybody up here who wants to come up and share a similar thought or understanding that you had when you were younger that you discovered was not quite the case with us. But before we do that, I want to introduce several members of our group who are going to be participating in the meeting tonight. And just so our guests understand, if you've not been to a Toastmasters meeting before, there's a lot of structure to the meeting. You'll see members who have signed up for roles come up and do their roles. And then we have three main sections to our meeting. We have what I call our prepared speeches, and we have two excellent speakers tonight. And then we have what are called table topics, which is impromptu speaking. And then our last section is the evaluation section. And that gives several members a chance to come up to the front and practice their speaking. And that's really why all of us are here. So I'm going to start off by introducing one of our members who is going to either tell us a joke or give us an inspirational thought. And I have to thank her because I approached her just a few minutes ago and asked if she'd be willing to take on this role. So please give her a warm round of applause and a strong appreciation as we welcome Toastmaster Andrea.
I won't give you the speech that they give at church to bear with me, pray with me, because I wasn't prepared, because as a Toastmaster, we're always prepared, because that's where leaders are made. That's what we come here for, to speak up and tell what we want everybody to know. So when I was thinking about the theme of tonight of what did I think about, or what did I think I knew? I thought I knew who I was. I thought, because I was born, and on my birth certificate, it says Andrea Caprice, yes, after the car, Williams. That's how I introduced myself for 48 years. If you met me, you would say, what is your name? And you may say Andrea, and I'll say, no, it's Andrea Caprice Williams. Till one day I walked in church and everyone knew that I love butterflies. Not just called a butterfly, but I am the chocolate butterfly. And that's what she called me. And I said, that's not my name. My name is Andrea Caprice Williams. Chocolate I might be, butterflies I may love, but chocolate butterfly, not me. A year later, I finally embraced that name. And because of that, guess what everybody else did? They embraced me. Have you ever been in a place where you thought you knew who you were, but you looked in the mirror and you couldn't recognize the person that you saw? The confidence that I dispel to you today, the confidence that I give you today, the confidence that I raise my voice as a proud African-American woman full of color, beauty, grace, creativity, a little suave, it's because I looked in that mirror and I found out who I really, really was. Then I was doing some research because I have to honor a king who my books and my whole business is kind of based off of. He had a dream. His name was Martin Luther King. And there was a rumor or a anomaly that Aretha Franklin sung at his funeral, which she really didn't. It was Mahalia Jackson. But today, I want to sing you one of his favorite hymns that Aretha Franklin sung for him. Just a piece, just a taste, just for you, just for me. Amazing grace, how sweet the sound and grace that taught me how to pray. I'm giving myself grace because I haven't sung this song in forever. But I once was lost, but now I'm found. Was blind, but now Give yourself grace today. You may not know who you are. You may not recognize that person in the mirror. You may think that you have to be at a certain place, a certain part of your life, gain your wings before you develop them. Why? Everybody has a time that they can go in a cocoon. And when you wish upon a star, it makes no difference who you are. When you wish upon a star, your dreams, they can, they will. The dreams you pursue will come true. Be you, butterfly. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrea. That was awesome. Full disclosure, we don't teach singing here at Queen City, but Andrea might be a great resource there. So the next two people I introduce are helping us run the meeting. Please join me in welcoming Toastmaster Jamie Richardson, who is our grammarian, and he will explain the role. Jamie.
Thank you, Toastmaster Eric. So something that I was 100% confident was true. I use this anecdote all the time. It was like the fun fact that I brought out at parties. And it was that when you're born, your eyes are the same size they will always be. Full size eyes. Just that's why you always see babies. They're so cute with those huge eyes. It's completely not true. Realized this about like a year ago when I finally went in and did research after telling the 50th person I told this anecdote to. But and Dr. Eric's laughing at me. But there is actually one thing in the human body that is the same size your whole life. And it's a couple tiny little bones in the ear that never go. But that's not a fun anecdote. Nobody wants to hear about your ear bones. They want to hear about the beautiful eyes that babies have. So anyway, moving on. Grammarian's report or grammarian's role has three things. I am responsible for listening for filler words, things that make us less effective as public speakers, basically distract potentially from our speech or from our prepared remarks, and generally show that maybe we're lacking a little bit of confidence up here. So that's one thing I will listen for and provide back in the grammarian's report at the end. The second is particularly effective use of language. So things that I hear throughout the day that I thought were evocative or particularly inspirational. And I'll share some of those back, but everyone else is all happy to capture those and share those as well. And then the third is the word of the day. And given tonight's theme, our word is fallacy, which means something that you believe to be true, but turns out actually isn't true. So that's the word of the day. I encourage everyone to use the word fallacy in your speech, or if you come up for table topics, and we'll keep track of that in the grammarian's report as well. And that's it. I'll turn it back to our Toastmaster.
Thank you very much, Jamie. Our next member who has a supporting role during tonight's meeting will be our timer. Please join me in welcoming our president, Elvis Lopez.
Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster. When I was a kid, very little, I thought that my parents were 100 years old because that was a big number for me. When I was growing up and I became a teenager, I thought people with 50 years or that were 50 years old were really, really, really very old people. And that's a complete fallacy. I can tell because I'm now past that age and I don't feel that old, or the people that are over 50 are that old anymore. Now, my role as a timer is to time all the speeches tonight. And we have three types of speeches. The prepared speeches, 5 to 7 minutes. At 5 minutes, I will be turning on the green light, and also there will be a sign for those who are online. When you see that green, it's that you have reached to that point. So for the prepared speeches, it's going to be 5 minutes, 6 minutes, the yellow light, and then at 8 minutes is going to be the red light. For the impromptu speeches is going to be 1 to 2 minutes. So at 1 minute is going to be green, 1.5 minutes is going to be yellow, and at 2 minutes is going to turn red. And then for the evaluations is going to be from 2 to 3 minutes. So at 2 minutes, 2.5 minutes, and 3 minutes. You know the drill. Green, yellow, red. So all these speakers will have a 30 seconds grace period for them to wrap up. So after that, or before the 30 seconds, all the speeches qualified. So the idea is for all of the speakers to stay within the allotted time. And that is my timer's roll. Back to Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you, Elvis. And just for our guests, the reason why timing is important is because often you're invited to speak somewhere or you're on in a meeting and you're being allotted a certain amount of time, and it's important to try to stay on time. And so we try to do the same here as part of how we practice becoming better speakers. So that brings us now to the next section of our meeting, which is a very exciting one. It's our prepared speeches. And as I said, we have 2 excellent speeches prepared this evening. Our first speaker is somebody who, every time I hear him speak, I learn something. It doesn't matter what role he's doing, but he has taught me and many other people in our club many valuable lessons about public speaking. And I know all of you will enjoy hearing him talk just as much as I do. His speech this evening is titled, The Ed Tate Secret. Please join me in welcoming Mr. John Capello.
Thump, 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 thump. I felt like my heart was going to race so hard it was going to beat right out of my chest. My breathing was short and labored. The tips of my fingers started tingling. I couldn't even make a fist. Beads of sweat started coming down my face. I felt like I was having a panic attack. No, I wasn't giving a speech. It was far worse. I was about to face my dreadful fear of heights. Fellow Toastmasters, honored guests, Queen City, I have 2 goals tonight. That first goal is to finish that story. My second goal is to share with you the Ed Tate secret. Now you're probably wondering, who's Ed Tate? Ed Tate is a Toastmaster that won the 2000 World Speaking Contest. And he did it by sharing a story. That may not be such a secret to all of us here, but Ed Tate has some great tips on effective storytelling. And I'm going to share them with you tonight, both his content as well as his delivery style. And it will require audience participation. So be ready. Hopefully you will be well informed, as well as hopefully have a little bit of fun. But first, let's get back to my story. I was in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. I was on a graduate student trip, fellow classmates, and one of my classmates was a local Brazilian. Now, he had a special adventure plan for us for our last day. We wake up eager with anticipation. We all pile into this van and we start going up, ascending these windy, narrow roads up into the hills that overlook Rio de Janeiro, up into the cliffs. I said to myself, I know where we're going. We're going to see the big statue of Jesus that overlooks the city of Rio. Only when we arrived at my destination, there was no Jesus, but I was praying to him. Why? Because a local student that came turns around to the rest of the van and says, surprise, we're all going hang gliding. Everyone cheers, hooray. I had this grimace on my face, like, oh, great. Why? Because I am definitely afraid of heights. I can't even go in an elevator without starting to feel a little nauseous. I can't go to a window in a tall building. I am in the worst possible situation. I keep thinking to myself, well, surely someone's going to back out and not feel comfortable, and I'll just use that as my excuse to bail. Wouldn't you figure every single person was on board? What was I going to do? I remember thinking to myself, I picked the wrong day to stop day drinking. So picture this. Picture this. There's these big gliders. They sit on these two downward sloping steel bars. The gliders sit on top. They position the professional glider up near the top so they can steer. The amateur sits a little bit lower, about handlebar at chest level. Now, once they release the bar and everyone's secured, the glider starts sliding down these poles, and it is the amateur's job to start running, pick up acceleration, and jump from a cliff. Now, everything about that for someone who has a fear of heights is just wrong. I did not want any participation. I kept trying to think of ways I could get out of it. One by one, each one of my classmates. And as each one went off, I felt like my chest started constricting even more. I couldn't even breathe. The instructor approached me. You could tell I was feeling a little tense. Don't worry, John. Here at Rio Adventure Tours, we take every safety precaution. It's a perfect day for flying. Sometimes we even get our adventure seekers down safely. Okay, he didn't say sometimes, I just made that up. But that's what I was thinking in my head. I was convinced there was a non-zero chance of dying that day. It was only further solidified when he presented the waiver. Anyone who's done extreme sports, you know what I'm talking about here. I said, well, what's that? Well, that just says if anything should happen, that Rio Adventure Tours cannot be held responsible. I knew it. There is a non-zero chance of dying that day. But there was no turning back now. If I left, I'd have a long walk back to the hotel and probably face public criticism once I got there. It was time to face the music. The trainer reminded me, the most important thing, John, you must keep running. Jump as far away from the cliff to ensure that the trade winds coming up the face of the cliff will jettison the glider up into the air, and you'll proceed on the magic carpet ride down to the warm white sands of Ipanema Beach. Sounds great, doesn't it? I get up there and the entire crowd that's remaining starts chanting, "Don't stop running. Don't stop running." And I squinted as if that was going to save me from impending death. Don't stop running. Don't stop running. Whoosh, whoosh. I still had my eyes kind of squinted. I could hear the rustling in the chute. I slowly start to open my eyes, and maybe I realized that all this panic was a fallacy. As it turns out, I have this beautiful view of Rio de Janeiro coastline. It is downright majestic. I feel like I'm flying. Dare I say, I was enjoying it. Now, this magic carpet ride didn't last but a few minutes. And I finally touched down, my toes touched the warm sand of Ipanema Beach. My fellow students were cheering for me. Very attractive Brazilian women were also cheering for me. And I had a smile ear to ear on my face. And it wasn't because of that. I was smiling because I had conquered my fear. It felt exhilarating. I mean, like a lightning bolt had struck my body. I was numb from head to toe and on a natural high for almost a week. I always remember that moment. Anytime I face something challenging, I remember how I overcame that. And it helps get me through and propel me forward when I need it most. Fellow Toastmasters, the moral of the story is your greatest victory, your greatest sense of accomplishment, your greatest joy exists on the other side of fear. So the next time you face that challenging moment, that fear of heights or that fear of flying or that fear of asking out that special someone or your fear of public speaking, just remember, your warm white sand beaches are waiting for you. You just got to face the music, don't stop running, and jump. Now, I promised you my second goal, and that's going to start with a question. How many of you feel that that story made you think? All right, let me ask it differently. Did that story make you think? Yes or no? Okay, it's the audience participation part. Just shout it out when you know it. Could you relate to that story? Okay, and Tate would be proud. Did that story make you laugh?
Yes.
All right, I like it online. Good. And finally, did that story have a message? Okay. And Tate would be proud. So Ed Tate's view is that if you want to be a memorable speaker, if you want to have an impact, then you must utilize the story. And every story starts at essentially the end. Some call to action, something you want your audience to know, feel, or do. Andrea alluded to this. He calls it the KFD. And if the KFD is the destination, then the story is the vehicle that gets you there. Now, this is the most important part. Ed Tate has 4 essential elements of any story. He calls it the 4 H's. I want everyone to put your pens down, all eyes on here. Everyone put your phones down. If you're going to remember one thing, this is the time to remember. All right, it's going to require some audience participation. The 4 key H's by Ed Tate. Are we ready? Everyone do this. This is your. Come on, louder than that. This is your. And it makes you. This is. Makes you. First key H. Are we ready? Second key H. This is. And it connects. What's this? And it. All right, that's the second key H. Third key H. Everyone put your hands here. This does not stand for hernia. This is going to stand for humor. Okay? Everyone keep your hands here. Give me a good belly laugh. All right, what's this? It makes you. This is. Makes you. All right, let's take it from the top. A quick review. This is. Makes you. This is. It. This is. Makes you laugh. Fourth and most important H. Are we ready for this? All right. The 4th H is heavy hitting. Everyone do this. Heavy hitting. And it is the message. Ready? One more time. Heavy hitting. And it is. All right. One more time. Real fast from the top. This is. Makes you. This is. And it. This is. Makes you. And finally, heavy hitting, and it is the message. Fellow Toastmasters, if you would like to be more memorable, if you would like to be more impactful, when you're crafting your story, make your audience think, try to connect with them, try to make them laugh, and finally, leave them with a message. If you do this, I promise you, you will obtain this. And I just want to congratulate all of you because you now have the Ed Tate secret. Toastmaster.
Thank you, Toastmaster John. Another round of applause for him, please. One of the things you'll hear in Toastmasters is the word pathways, and pathways is the way Toastmasters helps all of us progress as we are moving through on our journey to become better speakers. And so our next speaker is on a pathway that is titled Dynamic Leadership. And his last speech was one of 2 speeches as part of his evaluation and feedback project. And how that works is you give a speech, you get evaluation, and in this particular project, you make the adjustments and you give the same speech a second time around. Many of you will have the pleasure of hearing this for the first time. So please join me in welcoming Toastmaster Leon, who will give his speech titled Men's Mental Health, a Continuous Conversation Worth Having. Leon.
Thank you. How y'all doing today? Doing good? Good. One second. Good evening, fellow Toastmasters and honorable guests. Who has ever heard the saying that insight is the beginning to change? Now, another question I have for you is, what are some ways to gain insight? Any answers? Reading, research, asking questions, good one. Another way to gaining insight is to have conversations. And a conversation that I believe worth having continuously is centered around men's mental health. Because when we look at the statistics, 1 in 10 men experience anxiety and depression, but less than half seek treatment. 40% of men won't talk about their mental health. Men are more likely to commit random acts of violence. Men are 3 times more likely than women to commit suicide, and nearly 75% of all world suicides are done by men. And these statistics are even more troubling in minority communities. Now, I'm not here to talk about why these things are, because on the top of big whys are smaller whys. But what I'm here to do is to potentially promote a conversation around my experience with having conversations around mental health and the insights to gaining and understanding mental well-being. Now, in order to have this conversation, there's one key thing that it must lead with, and that is vulnerability. Why vulnerability? Because vulnerability shows us and it lets us tell the world that we are unable to do all things by ourselves. And then also, I have a secret for the guys, but you didn't hear this from me. But women also think vulnerability is sexy. But you didn't hear that from me. Now, vulnerability is the vehicle to insight into understanding your own mental well-being. See, 6 months ago, I started going back to therapy. And the key word is going back. See, there's a statistic that says that men are less likely to seek help, but also less likely to commit to maintaining that help. And one of the reasons I had to think to myself, I had to ask myself that question to gain that insight. Well, why did I stop going? And a large part of it, and especially talking to other men, is the avoidance of vulnerability and the pain that comes with it. And through that avoidance, I began to use self-care as a distraction. See, I thought that being able to do what I want when I want it was happiness, or at least it made me appear that I was happy, when deep down I was frustrated, maybe even feeling a bit lonely, and just confused on some of the things that I was feeling and thinking. And so this gave me an opportunity, by going to therapy, it gave me an opportunity to finally put words to some of the thoughts that I couldn't quite articulate. And also through this experience, what I found was just how emotionally stunted I was. And through developing and opening up my emotional range, it gave me an opportunity to realize just how much this was robbing me of my own human experience, because our emotions play a very important role in the way that we engage with the world around us. And through expanding my emotional range and developing insight, I began to understand the tools to help navigate some of the difficult changes in life. And one of those main key tools was emotional intelligence. Emotional intelligence is the ability to manage both your emotions and to understand other people's emotions. And see, this gives you the ability to show empathy, to connect with others, and also to resolve conflicts in a very healthy way. See, and when it came to dealing with the grief of losing my mother right after I graduated from college, one of the fallacies that I had as a young man was that it would make me more of a man if I could overcome this pain alone. And one of the key things that I began to realize was how that was blocking me from using my emotional intelligence to be honest with myself that I wasn't doing okay. Another key thing that it was blocking me from was it was making it difficult for me to see how the way I was handling my mental health was also affecting others, which goes to the saying, if you never heal from what hurt you, you'll end up bleeding on people who never cut you. But through the insight of emotional intelligence, I began to realize that going to therapy wasn't necessarily a means of getting rid of my traumas and triggers, but helping me to learn how to manage them so I didn't bleed on others. And when you're moving through the world, bottling up your thoughts and emotions, it makes it hard to trust yourself. It makes it hard for other people to trust you. And it makes it hard for you to trust other people. See, trust is a very intimate emotion, whether if it's with ourselves or with others. And see, trust is the road for the vehicle of foundation to drive on to the destination, to insight and healing. And one thing that I also realize is that having the understanding to not just trust myself, but to trust the process and commit myself to the process. Also trusting other people to be there for me, to help me, which was a huge, difficult thing for me to overcome, which was just simply letting people be there for me. And then also trusting my emotions to guide me to my destiny, my purpose, and also more fulfillment in my life. So in conclusion, vulnerability is the vehicle to insight. Emotional intelligence is the tool to manage changes in life. And trust is the foundation to our liberation. Now, the key question is, how do we work on these things to get men more comfortable around these 3 points? And how to go about maintaining mental health, which is tricky to navigate because there's so many nuances, there's so many things different, case by case, person by person, but also here to potentially lend a piece of advice to anyone that has a man or a young man or a teenage or a boy in their life to schedule recurring check-ins with them, see what their dreams are, see what they're thinking about, read their body language, get a feel for how they're doing. And now, as I end my speech today, I want to share a story with you. So after I graduated college and my mother transitioned, I decided to pursue a dream of mine, which was backpacking. And I spent 14 months backpacking across Europe, South America, and also Panama. But at the beginning of that trip, I had yet to really realize all the grief that I was feeling. And I found myself in Madrid, Spain, in Puerto del Sol. After a long night of drinking, I found myself there 3:30 in the morning, alone and lost, and a dead phone. Something you don't want to be in a place that you're not very familiar with. And one taxi came by and I tried to articulate to him in Spanish that my phone was dead and if I could use his phone so that I could show him where my hostel was so he could take me to my hostel. So clearly, probably a little skeptical about just a guy just there and trying to use his phone. So he drove off. And this is the time of night where a taxi maybe only comes around every 15 to 30 minutes. And I begin to sit there in Puerto del Sol on a bench and I begin to weep because it gave me a moment of vulnerability and loneliness where I really began to grasp the fact and the sadness that I was feeling from losing my mother. And then I remember very vividly looking up into the sky and I saw a big, bright, full moon. I mean, it was so big and bright that I felt as if I could reach out and touch it and pull it just a little bit closer. And in that moment, I began to feel an overwhelming feeling that helped me to pull myself back together. And shortly after that, a taxi came and he was more than willing to work with me, allowing me to use his phone to show him where my hostel was. And I ended up getting home safely. Now, I'd say this story to lay down the foundation to a beautiful quote that goes, "There is neither happiness nor misery in the world. There is only the comparison of one state with another, nothing more. He who has felt the deepest grief is best able to experience supreme happiness." Thank you.
Thank you, Toastmaster Leon. That was excellent. So Elvis, can we please have a timer's report for our 2 speeches?
Yes, John had a special speech. It was 10 to 12 minutes and he came up at 11 minutes and 13 seconds. And Leon came up at 9 minutes, 42 seconds.
Thank you. The next section of our meeting is the impromptu speech portion, and it is called Table Topics. And I want to remind everybody that try to use the word of the day. We've already heard it a couple times. Please join me in welcoming Toastmaster Melissa, who will be heading up our table topics.
Good evening, everyone, fellow Toastmasters and honorable guests. Happy to be here tonight. I am your table topics master for tonight. And table topics, as Dr. Eric mentioned, is a time for you to practice your impromptu speaking. So oftentimes at work or even in social situations, you'll get asked a question and have to come up with an answer. And so it's all about trying to organize things in your brain and speak clearly. Something that I certainly myself am working on as well. So for the timing of this one, we have between 1 to 2 minutes. 1 minute, you'll get the green light, 1 minute, 30 seconds, the yellow light, and 2 minutes, the red light. And we can have volunteers from members or from guests, up to you. Probably have time for about 2 people, 3 people. 3, okay, yeah. All right. And for tonight, I know that our theme was about something that you thought was true, but then later found out it wasn't. When I looked at the agenda today, I was multitasking at work and did not see the theme. So I saw Leon's speech topic and thought it was about mental health tonight. So I came up with a couple questions about mental health, which I think are still very valuable, especially in the beginning of the year. So who would like to be our first volunteer for a mental health table topic? And online as well. All right. Perfect. All right. The question for you is, what are you doing now or would like to do more of for your own mental health?
And just to confirm, it's me, right?
Yes, for you. Yep.
Okay. One thing I started doing for my personal mental health about a year ago was I started taking cold showers. And at first, it may not make sense why the cold showers help, but there's science that backs it. It's something you don't want to do that puts your body in a shock. It raises your adrenaline levels. It puts you in fight or flight. And that it kind of makes everything, the rest of your stressors in life, it makes them a little dulled down. When you spike your adrenaline first thing in the morning, it makes everything else seem easier. Excuse me. But yeah, that's the one thing that I really started doing for my mental health about a year ago. And I would say that's made the biggest difference for me.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing. I've heard from many people that a cold shower is beneficial, but for myself, I love a warm shower or hot shower. All right, next volunteer. Yeah, gonna come up? All right, it's a long walk, thank you. For your question, how would you describe your perfect day?
My perfect day would probably start waking up early. I don't know how much most people tend to sleep in here, but personally, I don't sleep a lot. And I kind of enjoy it that way, contrary to popular belief. I usually wake up around 4:30. And I'd like to wake up, go down to the kitchen, make myself a nice cup of coffee, sit, relax for a bit. If I'm in my ideal place, sit out on a back patio, enjoy some nice warm weather. Afterwards, go for a stroll. Enjoy the road, enjoy listening to the quiet in the air, because by then it would probably only be about 6 a.m. and everything's still and quiet and peaceful. From there, spend some time exploring, maybe go to a cafe. Enjoy some French toast. That'd be good. And then meet up with a friend or two, make a couple phone calls to family, check in on everyone, make sure they're doing all right. By the end of the day, I'd like to wrap up just actually having some quiet time where there isn't too much going on and I can read a book, take a time to write either just a paper, some ideas, brainstorm, or even draw. Although I'm pretty bad at drawing, so I probably would just postpone that even further. After that, lie down, cocoon myself in a blanket, and just go back to bed and wait for tomorrow. Thank you.
That was wonderful. I also enjoy my sleep, but I feel like I have only a couple weeks left of sleeping. So, all right, do we have time for one more? Okay, one more. Any volunteers in the room or online? All right, we got one in the room. All right, thanks for volunteering. Okay, kids and teens these days deal with what? Oh, I'm sorry. Your name?
LaShawn Bower.
Thanks. Sorry. Okay, kids and teens these days deal with a lot of mental health issues. What is one thing that you think they could implement into or eliminate from their daily routines to help them?
It's a good question. So just to make sure I understand, the question is, what can teens and young children eliminate from their daily routine to help with support their mental health? Is that correct?
Yes, either eliminate from
Or that is let me see. I don't hang out with many young children, so I'm not aware of their daily routines. But thinking back when I was a young child, waking up early, standing outside for the bus stop, cold weather. So similar to the cold shower, but I'm not sure if that's healthy, just standing out there 30 minutes waiting for the bus. So that the temperature shock may affect students and their ability to be prepared for classes. I'm not sure if that's the heavy hitter that I would like to suggest, but something to consider. And then going to school, I'm not sure how available cell phones are with the students at elementary and middle school. They weren't that available. So I have a teacher shaking their head that's very available. So that's probably my main suggestion then. Eliminating the use of phones within the classroom to help with focus, because the fallacy is that we can multitask, but the actuality, the realism of it is that we can't, we just switch back and forth. So teaching children and having them be able to focus in class on the topic at hand and also understanding their ability to learn, I believe will be the best bet for children, to just help them understand their ability to focus and be able to understand and grasp the materials and ask questions as a way to support their mental health. Thank you.
Thank you. And I would definitely agree that, and social media was one that came instantly to my mind. And I would just feel like that's a huge thing that has overwhelmed children, teens, and adults, all of us, for mental health. So I think that's all for today. So handing it back to, timer's report. I'm like,
Thank you. Well, Ali, my apologies because I lost track of the time, but I believe your speech was between 1 to 2 minutes, so that was good. Andres, you came up at 1 minute 43 seconds, and LaShawn, 1 minute 48 seconds. You all did good. Now back to our Toastmasters.
Thank you, Elvis. The next portion of our meeting is the evaluation portion of our meeting, and that will be led tonight by our Toastmaster, David Jones. Please join me in welcoming David.
Thank you, Toastmaster Eric. I'm the general evaluator. So tonight I'm going to evaluate the meeting as a whole. And then I'm also going to introduce our evaluators. That's one of the benefits of Toastmasters is you give a speech and then you're evaluated by one of your peers. And also here at Queen City, obviously we record everything. So if you go to our website on the bottom left under YouTube, you click on that and you can see yourself speaking tonight and evaluate yourself as well. As far as the fallacies go, Dr. Eric's wife happens to be a dentist, and my whole life I had a fallacy about our mouths because we're taught by our dentists incorrect information. And not too long ago, I found out about this on TikTok because whenever we're getting that's where I get most of my information. But our whole life, whenever we're getting the x-ray, what do they tell you to do? They say, bite down, but we don't bite down. Our jaws bite up, but they don't. So I always thought we bit down, but we don't. We bite up. But with that, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to our immediate past president, Vanessa Waller, and she is evaluating John Capello's speech. Take it away, Vanessa.
Thank you, David, and thank you so much to John Capello for what I would call in one word, truly a delightful speech tonight. And I was thinking back on your speech, John, as I was thinking through my evaluation, and I thought, what was it that made your speech so engaging and just such a delight to listen to? And I thought of three pillars, if you will, of your speech that I think really made it stand out as just such an enjoyable speech. The first one is your use of conversational tone when you were speaking, just flowed really effortlessly. The second was your humor. And this is one thing that's kind of hard to teach, but you nailed it. And finally, your storytelling skills. And to start off, I loved your conversational tone. And what I mean by that is sometimes it's easy to inject some vocal variety into your speech by inserting a dramatic piece of speech like raising your voice all of a sudden and then dropping it down just to kind of check that box of, okay, I did vocal variety in my speech tonight. But what I loved about your speech was that it was not forced. It sounded as though you had not even rehearsed it, but it was just so much a part of your mind that you were just effortlessly sharing with us, that your voice just moved effortlessly with the story you were telling. And that's one of those skills that I think is hard to teach, but I think it comes through experience. And your speech tonight was a testament to your dedication to Toastmasters and practicing over and over again all of those skills. And eventually you build up this really effortless style of speaking. And the second pillar is your humor. Again, something that's kind of hard to teach. And I would say that there are a couple moments that really stood out to me. There was one moment when you said, I picked the wrong day, pause, to stop day drinking. And that pause just injected a little bit of humor because we weren't sure what you were going to say next, but we were waiting to hear that. And it was just a funny punchline. And you shared about your difficulty of, getting on that hang glider. And I totally sympathize. That sounded terrifying. But you said, I knew it. There was a non-zero chance of dying. And I just loved that little bit of sarcasm you added. Again, in such an effortless way that made it really fun to listen to. And I was genuinely laughing as I was listening to you, although on mute, to not be too rude over Zoom. And finally, your storytelling ability. I think that one of the things that made your story come to life was your imagery. And this is simply painting a picture for the audience. You talked about what it was like when you had to run down towards that precipice before you took off on your hang glider. And that idea of running down and then floating into the air, you just painted that picture for us. And we were picturing you doing this, and we were picturing all of your colleagues going off of that cliff before you and how nervous you were feeling. That imagery really brought your story to life for us. If I had to suggest one small change and it was very minor. The comments you made about Ed Tate felt a little bit tacked on, just in the sense that it wasn't the focus of your story as much as your own personal experience was the focus. That was one thing I thought maybe could be tweaked a little bit if you were to adjust the speech for the future. But overall, I think you did such an excellent job, truly a delightful speech, and I'm looking forward to your future speeches. I'll turn it back over to David.
Thank you, Toastmaster Vanessa. Appreciate it. And next up to evaluate Leon's speech is Toastmaster Alan. Alan is the president of Ballantine Toastmasters. They're also a hybrid club that meets on Thursday nights if you're interested in checking them out. So please welcome Alan.
Good evening, fellow Toastmasters and our guests. Before I start Leon's evaluation, I would like to share one of my fallacies. When I was growing up, I used to think, like many other Americans, that low-fat and fat-free foods were healthier for you. But if you grew up in that time, what did they do to make up for the fact that there's no or less fat in those foods? They added sugar, artificial sweeteners, hydrogenated oils, and so on. And all that did was just stimulate our appetites even more. Nobody lost weight. They probably gained more weight. And of course, it increased your risk of heart disease, cancer, inflammation, and so on. And when I had COVID a couple weeks ago, I watched a lot of documentaries on YouTube that talked all about that stuff. And although I'm not a medical expert, just in my own experience with weight loss and so on, I can attest to that fat-free and low-fat foods are not better for you. And on that note, I would now like to start Leon's evaluation. For our guests, I will share from my own experience as well that becoming a better speaker is the primary objective of joining Toastmasters. But another intrinsic reward is learning how to be vulnerable and opening up yourself to other people, which is exactly what Leon did tonight. He shared his own personal story throughout his speech. It was very well structured as well. He told us what he was going to tell us, recapped it at the end, and gave all the examples right in the middle. And in the beginning, he engaged all of us with several questions. He had great use of vocal variety. I like the part where he whispered to us about how women think vulnerability is sexy. I like that. And then he did a great job not clinging to the lectern or not just standing behind it the entire time. He walked around, paid equal attention to all of us, as well as everyone who's on Zoom. And since this was his second time giving the speech, the first person who evaluated him gave him some suggestions on how to make the speech better. And the two that stuck the most were incorporating more pauses into the speech and consolidating it. The pauses, Leon, you did very well. My favorite was when you gave the speech, or excuse me, the quote about it was about you bleeding on other people who didn't cut you. And that was it was long enough, but not too long. And so that is the example of pauses that you should use going forward. And you did a great job using the pauses, especially when you gave quotes. As far as consolidating the speech, it was definitely more consolidated than the original one, but I think you could consolidate it just a little bit more. And one thing for everyone to keep in mind is when you're giving a speech, nobody else knows what you were or were not going to say. And when you know the speech has to be within a certain time parameter, you want to make sure you pick the most important things to share. And then another thing to mention, your favorite transition phrases are and so. When you were talking about your story in Spain, you use those quite a bit. If you just simply eliminate those completely, the pauses would be more prevalent and it really wouldn't add any time to your speech. And the last thing I would share moving forward, you said thank you at the end. You never want to say thank you at the end of the speech. When you're done, you can simply say Mr. or Madam Toastmaster. At the end of the day, the audience should be thanking you for sharing your speech with us, which is exactly what I will do now. Thank you, Leon, for sharing your story with us. Thank you for being vulnerable and shedding light on what is still very much a stigmatized topic in society. And I look forward to hearing more from you in the future. Mr. General Evaluator.
Thank you, Toastmaster Allen. Can we get a timer's report? Thanks. Waiting for you to finish writing.
Okay, Vanessa came up at 3 minutes, 39 seconds, and Alan, 3 minutes and 21 seconds.
Thank you, Mr. Timer. And due to time, I'm going to give a quick evaluation, then I'll have the grammarian come up and give his report. We have 50-50. We have 50% guests and 50% members. So thank you to all the guests that come. That's a great thing. With table topics, it was all guests again who spoke. And it is kind of a hard thing to do, just to walk up here and stand and speak in front of everybody. So congratulations to individual on Zoom and all of you. Toastmaster of the Day did a great job. He had a great story, a great theme. It was engaging, funny. He did everything that we wanted Toastmaster to do. Last minute, Andrea stepped up and gave a speech, which is what we're supposed to be able to do as Toastmasters, just be able to get up and talk just off the cuff. Elvis did a good job as timer. It's the first time he's done it in, I don't know, a year or 2 years. But again, Toastmasters are able to do every single role there is. And as far as our evaluators go, Vanessa did a great evaluation. Just kind of, we called it a sandwich approach, where you talk about the good, room for improvement, and then you follow up with some more good news. She did that. And let's see, Alan as well. Alan as a experienced Toastmaster, and he gave some great feedback, especially with the don't say thank you at the end. The audience is supposed to thank you for giving the speech, but it's just a habit that's really hard to break when we say thank you. And with that, I'm just going to go ahead and turn it over to our grammarian, Toastmaster Jamie.
Sir. Sir. Thank you, David. So congratulations, everyone. It was a very clean meeting. I didn't hear many filler words used throughout across all of our speakers. Those of you who did use filler words, the most common ones were some ums and some uhs and some ahs, a few ands here as transition words to get between things. Again, just try to, what I would encourage, again, go back, look at the video, reflect on it, see where you use those things and how you could be just more cognizant of it the next time you speak and how you could potentially take those out. Word of the day. Great use, David, Elvis, John, Leon, Alan, LaShone. So fantastic. Apologies if I missed anyone who used the word of the day as well. And then effective language. I think some of these have already touched on, and John, you had it throughout, but a couple of things that resonated with me when you landed on that beach, that lightning bolt had struck through you and you were feeling that energy of having gotten to the other side. And then that comment, maybe it's your own quote, which I think is a fantastic quote, which is greatest joy exists on the other side of fear. So that was fantastic. 4-H's in general, I think is a great message for all of us. Leon, if you never, the quote that you referenced is, if you never heal what hurt you, you will bleed on others that never cut you. I think that's right. That was a very powerful message as well. And Anders, I think I have your name right. French toast would be good. That one resonated with me. That's the grammarian's report. I'll turn it back to our general evaluator.
Thank you, Toastmaster Jamie. And as you notice, also, we talked about the process of the Toastmaster. We never like to leave the podium lectern vacant, so we always wait for the other person to come up. With that, I'm going to turn it back to our Toastmaster of the day. We'll close out the meeting in a moment. Thank you, Eric.
Thank you, everyone. I just have 2 quick reminders to share with the group. Our speech contest is going to be held on Tuesday, January 31st. And so we hope to see whoever wants to be here, and hopefully people will participate. And also, if you're interested in contests and judges training, that's going to be held this Wednesday night at 7 o'clock. The link is on our District 37 website. And with that, I will thank you all and now turn the meeting back to our president, Elvis Lopez. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster. Please help me with another round of applause for our Toastmaster of the day. Excellent, excellent job, everyone. And now we're going to wrap up the meeting. But before we do that, I would like to hear one more time from our guests. So, and I promise this will be the last time, right? So to our guests, please open up your mic, those who are on Zoom, and tell us your comments, general comments about the meeting as a whole. Ali, you want to start?
A lot of great speakers. Everyone speaking, in my opinion, did a really, really good job. I definitely want to keep coming back and have a lot of work to do. And I could tell it's going to be a good place to learn.
Thank you. It's good to have you here.
Thank you.
Dave, would you like to go next?
Sure. Yeah. I think just I can see that there's a lot of good practice with with doing the 10-minute speeches and the shorter on the fly speeches. So interested to try that at some point, and I think it'll be good.
Thank you. Tamil? Tamil? Okay.
Yeah, you're right.
Good.
I didn't feel that the speakers who spoke, they are practicing it. They did really well. The way they have engaged the audience, I really liked it. This is my second time. There are a lot of good presentation or impromptu speech happened. I really like it today. Thank you.
Thank you. It's good to have you here. And now I'm going to pass it on to our audience here. Starting with.
Yes, so this is the third meeting I've been to, and I just would say that I heard two of the most impactful speeches I've heard tonight. And just really, I hope that I can learn to engage the audience the way that that they were engaged today. So yeah, hopefully I can learn to stop using so many filler words and learn to look at people a little bit more, but I think I'm learning already.
Thank you for everyone that presented today. Yeah, definitely some powerful speeches. Definitely look forward to returning next week and to build my confidence with speaking in front of people, and I think that this is a great place to start.
Thank you. Help me, Melissa.
Good evening. So this is my second time attending a Toastmasters meeting, and I must say that tonight's speeches were absolutely phenomenal. It was very interesting how we were captivated by all the speeches tonight, even though the topics varied so much. I would say what I really enjoyed the most was the actual tangible information that I could take back, the 4 H's, thinking about the various quotes that you shared and things that I can implement literally tomorrow. So thank you all again. No, we're not supposed to say thank you at the end, but thank you all for what you said.
I'm also pleased with the speeches that I heard tonight. I've been to a lot of Toastmaster meetings over the last however many years. And again, I know that everyone's at different levels, but the speeches tonight were great topically as well as presentation wise. So I look forward to connecting with you guys. I would love to talk about mental health with you. That's a big thing, I know. And I just look forward to speaking with some other people as well.
Hey, Rob, again. I thought you guys did awesome. I could tell you were well prepared. You were articulate. You guys worked the stage really well. Yeah, I mean, I can tell that there's a big benefit to coming back here, learning the tips of the trade, and also the vulnerability. Like everybody told a personal story. Yeah, I thought it was great. I would like to do an impromptu speech next week. I did feel anxiety, but next week, I promise I want to step up.
Good evening, LaShawn Boldware. I believe my biggest takeaway was my excitement for the other additional thing I could take away from this organization is the knowledge that everybody's sharing and providing. So vast and it's so tangible and as well as informative. So I'm excited about that. And I look forward to attending more meetings.
I very much want to echo that as well. I like the knowledge that we're able to take away. The speeches were phenomenal. You two did amazing and really kept us engaged, and I very much enjoyed them. On top of that, I very much enjoyed listening to the feedback that you also received, because it's something that I felt I could take away personally as well and reflect on how I speak, and then implement that when I go ahead and speak in the future as well. So thank you for giving us the opportunity to just chime in, tune in, and participate.
Lonnie Richardson. It's tough to figure out something that hasn't been said, but I appreciate again the vulnerability of all the speakers. I'll definitely learn tonight and look forward to learning more. I think that's about it. Everything has been said.
Thanks for coming. Appreciate it.
Thank you, David. This is a growing and supportive environment. I don't know if you noticed, but all of you, all of us, at least got to talk today. And that is what we call practicing. Getting here to do it is what is going to get us to the next level. We want to get better at public speaking. We want to get better at controlling our fears. We want to get better at networking and connecting with other people. Well, the way to do it, or the way to get there, is to start doing it. So we foster that environment here, very supportive environment. There's no criticism, but positive reinforcement for us to grow. I would like to thank all of you, especially to our guests. You're always welcome to come here. Those who are on Zoom, if you have the opportunity also to join us in person, you can do it. If you want to continue doing it on Zoom, this is the right vehicle. We are here every week, and we will welcome you next week again in our club that is here open for all of us, but especially for you. Thank you so much, and we'll see you next week.